In the grand hall, filled with laughter on Christmas Eve, the clinking of champagne glasses and the soft hum of polite conversation wove through the marble-pillared lobby like a gentle symphony. The towering Christmas tree glittered with silver ribbons and crystal ornaments, its warm light flickering across polished floors. But all of that brightness dimmed the moment a single father named Henry Calder walked toward the old piano sitting quietly near the corner of the hall. He hadn't come to dazzle anyone. He hadn't come to interrupt the festivities or draw attention. He only meant to play a gentle lullaby, a small piece of comfort, so his daughter could fall asleep in his arms. But the moment the melody rose, a hush fell like snowfall over the room. Conversations died mid-sentence, heads turned, breaths stilled. And up on the mezzanine, CEO Ingrid Whitmore, poised and untouchable in her crimson gown, stood frozen, because the melody drifting through the air wasn't just any lullaby. It was a song her first love had written for her, a song no one else in the world should have known, a secret melody whispered into existence on a night when she was 18 and foolish enough to believe love could defy time. Her hands trembled, her heart open like a wound she had stitched closed long ago. The man who wrote that song, Leon Merritt, the boy who had made her believe in magic, had died 16 years ago. The melody died with him. So how could this quiet, weary-eyed janitor be playing it now? Hours earlier, before anyone knew the night would unravel the past, the corporate tower's lobby had already been transformed into a winter wonderland. White lights cascaded down the marble columns like frozen waterfalls. Wreaths adorned every door, and cinnamon spice candles perfumed the air. Guests in glittering attire flocked toward the dessert tables and open bar, eager for warmth against the December chill. Henry Calder moved through the crowd nearly invisible, slipping around waiters and executives with practiced ease. He wore a gray work shirt faded from too many washes. His calloused hands were still streaked with faint traces of grease from fixing a heating vent earlier that day. At 36, he carried himself with the kind of quiet dignity people overlooked. They saw the janitor. They didn't see the musician who had once played under stage lights, whose name, long ago, had appeared in local papers as a rising talent before tragedy struck. Beside him clung his 7-year-old daughter, Audrey, bright-eyed and bubbling with excitement. Her black curls bounced as she tugged her father to the dessert table, her eyes widening at the chocolate fountain like she'd stumbled into a fairy tale. She wore her favorite silver dress, slightly worn, the seams lovingly mended by Henry, but she twirled in it as if it were spun of starlight. Henry watched her with an ache in his chest, a fierce, protective love tangled with guilt. He couldn't give her the childhood she deserved. No fancy dresses, no spacious home, no private lessons or weekend trips. Just a cramped apartment with a clanking radiator and the community center piano where he still played sometimes, when he hoped no one was listening. Above the crowd, from the mezzanine, Ingrid Whitmore looked every bit the titan she had become. At 34, she ruled Whitmore Holdings, a real estate giant that now owned nearly half the waterfront. She carried herself like royalty, chin lifted, shoulders back, her honey blonde waves falling in perfect symmetry. Her crimson dress hugged her figure in a way that commanded attention without begging for it. Her heels clicked with authority, but it was her eyes, ice blue, sharp as broken crystal, that truly held power. People whispered about her ruthlessness, her precision, her unshakable control. No one called her soft, but beneath the diamond-heart exterior, she carried a secret grief, a shadow that never left her. She had once loved a boy, Leon, the prodigy whose music stole her breath. He'd written her a song called Starlit Promise, promising her forever in the only language he truly understood, music. 3 weeks later, he died in a car crash, and Ingrid learned to survive by building walls so high nothing could ever reach her again. The illusion of perfection shattered when a small cry cut through the music and laughter. Audrey, reaching for a chocolate-covered strawberry, slipped on a splash of spilled champagne. Her knees struck marble. The sound was small, but sharp enough to ripple through the hall. She fell hard. Her face crumpled, tears spilling instantly. Blood seeped through her tights. Henry was at her side in seconds, sweeping her into his arms. He pressed a clean handkerchief to the wound, whispering soothing words. Audrey clung to him, hiccuping through soft sobs. Before he could move her to the restroom, a cold voice sliced through the moment. "Can you control your child?" Henry turned to see Flynn Baker, Ingrid's fiancé, dressed in a tailored navy suit, jaw clenched in annoyance. Flynn, with his polished shoes and perfect smile, the man her father had handpicked for her. "This is a corporate event," Flynn continued sharply, "not a daycare. If you can't afford a babysitter, perhaps you shouldn't have brought her." Henry stiffened but kept his voice level. "She slipped. She's hurt. Accidents don't happen when people know their place." Flynn's disdainful gaze dragged over Henry's worn clothes. "There's a staff entrance for a reason." Audrey shrank closer to her father. Henry's jaw flexed, anger simmering under the surface. But before he could respond, a sudden shift in the room's atmosphere silenced every whisper. Ingrid Whitmore was descending the stairs. Her expression was carved from ice. "You do not," she said softly, but with the force of a blade, "speak to my employees that way." The entire room stilled. "Apologize," she ordered. Flynn's eyes widened. "Ingrid, Now." Humiliated, Flynn muttered a clipped apology. Henry nodded stiffly, lifting Audrey into his arms, grateful for the chance to escape. "Take the private elevator," Ingrid said more gently, turning to him. "5th floor. First aid kit is in the executive lounge." Henry carried Audrey away. Ingrid watched them go, her chest tightening with an unfamiliar feeling she refused to name. An hour later, father and daughter returned. Audrey bandaged, warm with cocoa, her smile restored. The party had grown louder, merrier. Someone had uncovered the vintage. Steinway in the corner, though the accountant banging out 3 clumsy chords seemed to be its only fan. Audrey tugged her father's hand. "Daddy, please? Play one song so I can sleep." Henry hesitated. He hadn't played publicly in years, not since the accident shattered his hand and his dreams. He wasn't sure if he could bear people watching, judging, remembering who he'd been. But Audrey's hopeful eyes dissolved every fear. He sat. The crowd quieted. His fingers trembled as they hovered over the keys, scarred, stiff, but still somehow graceful. And then he began to play. A soft melody, like rain on glass, every note delicate, intentional, full of meaning. Then it grew, blooming into something breathtaking, haunting, achingly beautiful. A song that felt like a confession, a memory, a promise. Ingrid froze at the mezzanine railing, her entire world suddenly tilting beneath her. No, it couldn't be. The melody rapping through the hall, like a ghost, was starlit promise. Leon's song, her song, a song no one else should have known. Her vision blurred, her chest ached, the room swayed. How did this janitor know it? How? Her heels clicked as she descended, drawn forward by invisible threads of fate or madness. She stood just feet from Henry as he finished the last devastating chord. He opened his eyes to find her there, pale, breathless, glowing with memories and heartbreak. "Where did you learn that?" she whispered, voice trembling. Henry rose slowly. His heartbeat thundered. "It's just an old melody," he said quietly. "Something Don't lie to me." The room turned silent again, watching, sensing something monumental unfolding. "That song was written for me," Ingrid whispered, "by someone who died 16 years ago. No one else knew it. So tell me, how do you know it?" Henry swallowed, unable to answer. Before he could speak, Audrey appeared beside him, tugging his hand. "Daddy, that was beautiful. Can we go home now?" Ingrid looked at the girl, then back at the man who seemed to fold protectively around her. Her questions turned to smoke on her tongue. She watched them leave, the melody echoing like a curse, and a revelation. That night, Ingrid Whitmore did not sleep. She replayed the song again and again in her mind, until sunrise bled across the skyline, and she knew one thing with absolute certainty. That man was connected to her past, to Leon, to the song, to the love she lost. But how? And why did he run? The answers would shatter everything. The airport felt colder the longer they stood there, as if the walls themselves sensed the weight of the moment. Ethan's hand trembled slightly while holding the little boys. Olivia stood with the suitcase beside her, watching him with quiet, steady resolve. She didn't rush him. She didn't tell him what the right answer was. She simply waited, something no one had ever done for him. Noah sniffled, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve. "Do we really have to walk far to get home?" he asked, his voice small. "My daddy used to carry me when I got tired." Ethan's expression cracked. Just barely, but deeply enough that Olivia noticed. He knelt again, so he was eye level with the boy. "Your home isn't far," Ethan said softly. "It's with your mom, and I'll take you there. I promise." Something in Noah brightened at that. "Not much, but enough. Can you carry me like Daddy did?" he whispered. Ethan froze. It was a simple request, yet something inside him twisted painfully. He wasn't a father. He'd avoided closeness his whole life. He didn't know if he had the right to step into such a tender space. But Olivia gave him a faint nod. "You won't break, Ethan," she murmured. "You're allowed to care." So he lifted the boy into his arms. Noah rested his head immediately on Ethan's shoulder, as though he'd done it his whole life. And Ethan, he didn't hate it. In fact, the child's warmth seeped into a place he thought had long been frozen. As they walked toward the parking garage, Olivia quietly moved beside him. "You handle that well," she said. "I have no idea what I'm doing," he admitted. "No one does," she replied with a small smile. They reached her car, a modest, older sedan with a slightly dented bumper, and Ethan couldn't help raising an eyebrow. "Don't judge," she said. "She may not look like much, but she runs like a dream." "It's not that," Ethan said quietly. "It's just, I'm used to security convoys." Olivia laughed. "Well, buckle up, Your Highness. We're traveling like regular humans today." He chuckled under his breath, though the sound felt foreign. Once Noah was buckled safely in the back seat, he yawned so widely that he startled himself and then giggled. For the first time since meeting him, Ethan saw an actual spark of childhood in the boy. "Are you hungry?" Olivia asked. Noah nodded. "Can we have burgers? Daddy used to buy me burgers on Sundays. He said it was our tradition." Olivia glanced at Ethan. "Burgers?" He nodded. "Burgers." They drove through the wet, glistening streets, neon signs reflecting across the windshield. It wasn't until they reached a small, family-owned diner that Noah's eyes lit up. "I know this place," he said. "Daddy took me here on my last birthday." Olivia's breath caught. Ethan felt it too, that sharp, sudden ache. Inside the diner, warm lights and the smell of grilling meat wrapped around them. They sat in a booth, Noah between them, his legs swinging restlessly under the table. The waitress, middle-aged, kind-eyed, smiled warmly at the boy. "Well, hello there. Haven't seen you in a while. How's your daddy, sweetheart?" Noah's fingers curled against the table. His lashes fluttered. Ethan answered for him. "His father passed away recently." The woman's smile faded. She reached out and squeezed Noah's small hand. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." Then she turned to Ethan and Olivia, voice softer. "He used to come in with his father every Sunday. They had the same order each time." "What was it?" Ethan asked gently. "A junior cheeseburger with no pickles," the waitress said, "and strawberry milk." Noah nodded. "That was our tradition." Ethan swallowed the tightness in his throat. "Then that's what we'll have today." A faint smile finally returned to Noah's face. As they ate, the boy grew more talkative, slowly, timidly, but undeniably. He told him about his dad's favorite songs, about how he used to make pancakes badly, about the silly way he answered the phone. Every memory was a mixture of sweetness and sorrow. At one point, Noah reached across the table and touched Ethan's sleeve. "Are you going to leave after you take us home?" Ethan hesitated. Olivia watched him carefully. "I don't know yet," he said truthfully, "but I won't leave until you're safe. And after that?" Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. Not yet. When dinner was finished, they drove toward Noah and Olivia's apartment. The rain had stopped, but the streets still shimmered with reflections of streetlights. Noah fell asleep in the back seat again, his head lolling gently side to side. Ethan found himself watching him in the rear-view mirror, studying the peaceful expression, the faint resemblance to the woman who had just unexpectedly become part of his night. "He trusts you," Olivia whispered. "He shouldn't," Ethan muttered. "That's not true." She looked out the window, her voice quieter. "People think strength comes from never needing anyone, but that's just another way of being lonely." He didn't respond. When they reached their building, a modest, aging apartment complex, Olivia unlocked the front door, and before she could suggest anything, Ethan swooped Noah into his arms again. "You don't have to," she began. "I know," he said, "but I want to." Inside, the apartment was small but warm. Child drawings taped on the walls, a soft blanket thrown over the couch, a shelf filled with little toys. It felt alive, something Ethan hadn't felt in his own mansion for years. He gently placed Noah on the bed in his small room. The boy stirred, blinked sleepily, then looked up at him. "Are you going to disappear when I wake up?" Noah whispered. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, touched the blanket, and said softly, "No, not tonight." Noah relaxed, finally letting sleep take him. Ethan returned to the living room where Olivia waited, arms crossed loosely, exhaustion in her posture. "Thank you," she said. "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She stepped closer, voice softer. "You didn't just help. You showed up. That matters." The room fell quiet. Something fragile hung between them. Ethan cleared his throat. "If you'll let me, I want to help more. Not just tonight." Olivia looked at him carefully, weighing his sincerity. Then she nodded. "You can stay for tea," she said. "And tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." For the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of direction. One that didn't come from business plans or board meetings, but from a small boy who asked for help and a woman who didn't let him walk away. And somehow, that felt like the beginning of something he didn't know he was searching for.